All right. We have it's coffee today. I know this is a big surprise. We've decaf today just because I was feeling like switching it up from the tea. So, thank you to my friend Eva for providing me with a cute little decaf coffee. I have the sun shining around me. I have beautiful picked flowers in the back. Thank you, nature. We still have our stick in the mic. I think we're ready to do this.
Hi, everyone. You're tuning in to the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast, a space of epic positivity, radical self expression, and transformational growth. Join me in celebrating this beautiful thing we call life with even greater ease, flow, and authenticity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast. I'm your host, Nikita, and I trust, hope, and expect that you all are having a super duper delightful, wonderful, and heart-filled day. Today's podcast is brought to you by stress. Like nothing really seems to be going wrong, yet for those of you who have been feeling what seems to be like a low hum of stress or anxiety in the background of your life, then this podcast is for you. Now, I was really inspired by doing this podcast today because I think that in the world that we are living in right now, there can be a lot of things that might feel a little bit stressful. Now, I don't know about you, but I would absolutely love to become even more resilient in the face of what can be some fairly stressful circumstances. Especially what's going on in the world around us today, there are absolutely some things that can feel very validating to continue the stress response inside our body. Now, over time, of course, we don't want to have our body in fight or flight because that causes a lot of long-term diseases and just wears down our body over time. And I think that we are all deserving of even more peace, health, and vitality in our life. And it is something that is well within our power. And on the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast, we are all about living into what it means to be perfectly, powerfully us and not let the outside world dictate how we show up, but rather using our God given gifts of autonomy and conscious co creation to create the lives that we would absolutely love living. And that starts with us. It starts with our ability to see what it is that's going on in our life and choose how we want to show up. So, in this podcast, we are going to talk about how we become even more resilient to the stress that is occurring in our life so that we can live even greater lives, so that we can be the people where up until now, maybe some things really triggered us, but now we're choosing to empower ourselves with the tools that allow us to live happier and healthier lives. So, we're going to talk a little bit about what is background stress, how it accumulates, how we can reset our internal stress thermometer, and some tools that will help you build your long-term resilience. So if that sounds good to you, then keep on listening. Now, some of you may know that I absolutely love baking. I have been doing it since I was a wee child, and now I have grown a business in the town that I am living in that allows me to express my creative talents in the form of delicious baked goods. Now, a baker's schedule is quite early, and something that I have found it took some getting used to. Waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning is not something that up until now I was very used to, especially when it came to having to be up and on right away. Now, in the day-to-day life of my bakery schedule, it can be what I have found to be very overstimulating. The oven fans, as soon as I turn them on, can be quite loud. I oftentimes have many things going on at once, just because there's some doughs that are rising, some things that are baking in the oven, some things that need to be taken out of the oven. There's background noise from the street around me. There's the music I'm playing in the background. And then there might be some things that I'm running through a list in my head of things that I would love to accomplish during that day. Now, compounded over the years, I realized that I trained my body to be very, very good at multitasking. And what I also discovered in my day-to-day life of being a baker is that as soon as I was awake, my brain immediately started turning on all the list of the things that I had to do during that day. And I didn't really relax into the day. I was up and I was on. And up until now, when I was up, I gave myself maybe about 20 to 30 minutes, if that, to get up, get dressed, brush my teeth, and head to the bakery to whip out an 8 to 10 hour day of nonstop baking, being on my feet, and if I'm really honest with myself, not taking breaks in between then to really allow my body to rest. Now, as you can imagine, with something like that, with a whole list of things that I, in my head, was saying I had to do, but I also chose to do, with all of the stimulation around me, and with not really giving myself that time early in the morning, that can really start to set some patterns in a day-to-day life and a way, and what I realized, the way my brain was starting to funnel into, which was not something of relaxation, but something of stress. Now, something I realized that even when I wasn't baking, I found myself very anxious. And I found myself, even in my day-to-day life, to be quite on. And I was always busy, always doing something. And whenever I tried to stop, there was this pit in my stomach, like a ball of butterflies, right directly by my solar plexus and right underneath it, where my belly button is. And it just felt like something I couldn't shake. And this is something that I know means that my fight or flight system is absolutely on. Now, when our fight or flight is on, it means our rest and digest is not on. It means that body is not healing. And I knew that I had to find balance somewhere, or I was going to continue to burn out like I was regularly and repeatedly on a monthly or quarterly basis. And I asked myself, Nikki, do you absolutely love your life? And if I was honest, the answer was no. And so I started to incorporate some routines into my life, like meditating and doing yoga and taking walks in nature and, doing the things. And even though I was taking more time in the morning, there were still some things like this feeling of, and what I mentioned to be the hum in the background of stress, this pit in my stomach of anxiety, this guilt for taking breaks. And I said, something is still up. Because if I'm doing the things, but I'm still not feeling how I would love to feel, then there's still something going on. And so recently, I've been listening to Paul McKenna. For some of you who know him, he is a fantastic psychologist. He works with people with PTSD, and he's a fantastic hypnotherapist. And I have just been eating up his content and really delving into what it means to be more peaceful, more mindful, more in love with life. And I've noticed myself over these past few months that something has dramatically shifted in my life where the pit in my stomach is far receded. And the anxiety that I usually and was normally feeling while I was baking has been receding. I'm actually enjoying myself and my work so much more, so much more. And It's something that I really wanted to bring to you guys because some of you may think this is your normal. That, of course, you wake up and you have a list of things to do, and it's okay to feel stress, and that stress is just a part of life. But what if it didn't have to be? What if the low humming stress that you're feeling is just something your body is used to because you've trained it to be? But what if instead of stress and anxiety, you could genuinely feel this deep sense of gratitude and peace and joy in being alive? And it wasn't, and instead of here are all the things I have to do, it's more like, I am so grateful that I have the opportunity to live into this day. And wow, look how beautiful the sun is. And I'm feeling so relaxed in my body. I don't know about you, but for me, that sounds like a whole lot better than the life that I was living up until now. So, what is background stress? As I mentioned, much of this information is gathered from Paul McKenna. I will link down where you can research him more to find out some of the things that I've been using and tools and resources that have really helped me along the lines of his work if you guys are interested in learning more about it. Now, background stress is low grade personal stress that we often carry without realizing it. These can be caused by constant notifications from our phones, unresolved thoughts that we carry throughout our day, and even micro tensions. Now, background stress is different from acute stress. Background stress is something that often goes unnoticed because it just feels normal to us. Background stress is often caused by having too much on our plate, noise pollution, and often just the life things that come up in our day-to-day life, such as various decision making, people pleasing, or unprocessed emotions. Now, background stress can often lead to burnout because it is unnoticed and because it is something that is constant and daily. On the flip side, acute stress is something that generally happens in the moment. It can be sudden and intense, and it is a specific reaction to a certain threat. This triggers our fight or flight or freeze or fawn response, which floods all the adrenaline and cortisol in our body to make quick decisions based upon past experiences that will best serve us in that moment so that we survive. Our heart rate increases and we start to narrow our focus. Now, this is fantastic in short bursts because it is our natural human response to make sure that we continue to live to the next day. Ideally, after an acute stress response, our body then returns to homeostasis. However, in our day-to-day life, oftentimes that acute stress can gradually turn into our unnoticed background stress because there are so many things throughout our life that continue to trigger the fight or flight response. So our body actually never has the time, unless we make it, to relax, calm down, and return back to homeostasis or a rest and digest state. Another way that you can think about this is that background stress is like a leaky faucet, and it's slowly filling the tub up until it overflows. Now, acute stress is like taking a big dump of water and just tossing it into the bathtub. Now, how does stress accumulate? I mentioned before that unprocessed micro-stressors can be a fantastic way of accumulating stress. It can be small things like unread emails, having a bad sleep, and then another bad sleep because you're still stressed about having a bad sleep or all the things going on in your life. It could be something like low blood pressure, a lack of recovery. Now, because our life and oftentimes our environment and society perpetuates this idea of this go, go, go mentality that you're always busy and you never really give yourself time to truly rest and relax. And I don't want to include sitting on the TV and numbing your mind with Netflix to be downtime because your body is still processing all the things that you are taking in. When I say recovery, I mean going to the beach and just laying there, or taking time for yourself and being mindful of your breathing, going to going for a walk in the forest and just listening to the birds around you. Real downtime does not include electronics, like social media. Stress can also accumulate by perfectionism or chronic worry. Now, as someone who identifies as a recovering perfectionist, this is something that when I was doing more research on really stood out for me because this idea of having a healthy lifestyle began to, at one point or another, consume me in the ways of which I was thinking about it. People would say, make sure you're doing your breathing, make sure you're taking time for yourself, make sure you're not drinking coffee, make sure you're eating the right foods, make sure you're exercising, make sure you're spending time with friends. And I'd say, okay. And so I realized that I was running a pattern of, okay, friends, tea, water, more hydration, good sleep, going to the gym, and I would check them off, but I realized that if I missed something, I was so hard on myself about missing something because I thought that I had to be perfect in this process of taking care of myself. However, when we think about these tiny micro-stressors accumulating, my body wasn't really feeling relaxed because in the process of trying to relax, I was so worried about being perfect at trying to relax. If you relate to this, comment down below because I would love to know that I'm not alone in this. Emotional residue is also something else that can accumulate. Sometimes, even though our mind may forget, our body always remembers. This is something I mentioned in a previous podcast, where our body is so intelligent. And when we're not able to consciously work through emotions or trauma of past events, it stores it for another day. Now, if it goes unresolved, this can again accumulate into cancer or colds, flus, fibromyalgia, stomach problems. The list goes on and on and on because our body is just doing its best to try to protect us in that moment. But over time, if we don't make space to help move through that energy, move through and process these unresolved emotions, it stays right in our body vessel, taking up space. There's also something called psychological habituation. This means that our body continues to get stuck in a loop of stress because it thinks it's safer to stay ready. Now, our body is very, very smart, and there's a part of our brain that is constantly scanning the environment around us to make sure that we stay safe. And if we're not taking this time to consciously create spaces where we are relaxed and telling ourselves that it's okay to be safe and creating this and signaling safety in our body through mindfulness practices, then our body really doesn't ever have a chance to get out of fight or flight. And this is often when that hum in the background of stress continues to perpetuate and often lead to burnout because our body's constantly scanning the environment for different stress to make sure that we are safe. Now, over time, this wears down our nervous system response. Now, over time, this wears down our nervous system because we can't be on all the time without having some consequences, right? Now, this reduces our stress tolerance and increases our internal stress thermometer. Now, this leads us to how do we reset our internal stress thermometer so we can become even better at adapting to and becoming even more resilient to stress in our life. And more importantly, how do we become even more happy, healthy, and genuinely joyful in life? Now, step one is something I will always tell you is just notice what you're noticing. Now, in your day-to-day life, if you've been noticing that you've been feeling a little bit of a pit in your stomach, that your jaw is tight, that you're getting these constant migraines, that you're not having great sleep, that maybe you feel that you're always hot wired and ready for something, great job. That is the first step to being able to shift things, is just noticing that something is a little bit tense, is a little bit out of balance. And we can't change anything if we aren't first aware of it. Something else that can help you if you're not aware of what might be causing the stress or what might be feeling stressed in your body is journaling. You can even ask yourself, what are the subtle signs that my body is telling me that I am living with background stress? Other physical cues that your body might be giving you, other than a tight jaw, could be shallow breathing or this feeling of restlessness, like you can't sit still, or you might feel guilt for taking that rest. Number two, interrupt that pattern. Remember that our body can get stuck in routine and a psychological habituation to a stress loop. So now that we are aware of some of the signs that our body is giving us that we are under some stress, let's interrupt it. And let's break that loop and create a new pattern for our brain. Splashing cold water on your face can be a fantastic way of just shocking your body to focus on something else. You can literally stand up and shake it out. If you don't just want to move your body in whatever way it wants, you can just put on a really good song and just dance it out and just be intentional about it, saying, I'm just shaking out all of the beautiful stress in my body and creating room for magic and joy and love and gratitude to take its place. If you're feeling really high and you want to bring yourself down, a fantastic way you can do that is using your breath. If your breath is feeling shallow, then consciously take some deep belly breaths and focus on breathing in through your nose and feeling the expansion in your belly, and consciously and slowly blowing out that stress. And do that as many times as you feel until you actually feel your body physically relax. Number three, let's regulate this daily. It is not a one and done, but something that is going to become a part of your beautiful life. Begin a morning routine that serves and supports and holds intentions for the rest of your day. Remember when I told you that as a baker for the past several years, that up until now, I was up at 3 or 4 and giving myself about 20 minutes before I was up and ready and busy working? Well, what has really helped serve and support me is buffering about 1 to 2 hours instead of 20 minutes to my body and my mind, and serving and supporting my nervous system. Now, one way that you can do this is more breathing and mindfulness and meditation, journaling and yoga, and even vagus nerve stimulating. Something that I love doing before I go into my breathing practice and my meditation is to audibly hum in the back of my throat. It's like a So I breathe in and I breathe out and I hum, which stimulates the vagus nerve, which is going to help physically relax your body. And you can also choose to take a couple minutes throughout your day to build in these micro moments of recovery. Now, something that Paul McKenna mentions is that in these micro moments, when your body is starting to relax or you find yourself daydreaming, that's the perfect moment when your body is going into a reset mode, anyways. So take that time to sit or lie down and say to yourself in a really calming voice, I'm now relaxing my eyes. I'm allowing myself to relax my jaw. I'm now allowing myself to relax my shoulders and my chest and relaxing my stomach. And just go and keep doing that from head to toe and just lie or sit there in these moments of 2 to 20 minutes of just sitting there and feeling your body just physically relax. And number 4, recalibrate with some movement and or nature. You can take your shoes off, walk barefoot on the grass or on a cute sandy beach, or find some intuitive movement practices such as yoga or stretching that allow you to come back to your body in a safe way, where your body's not just moving to do something, but you're allowing your body to move in a way where you honor the significance and beauty of being in the body that you have. Now, here are some tools that are going to help you build some long-term resilience to stress in your life. Now, I mentioned breath work as well, but something I did not mention that I would love to include here is that I've created a paradigm busting workbook. This is going to help you recognize the paradigms, the beliefs, the stories, or habits that are no longer serving you as the person that you would absolutely love to be as a conscious co-creator of the life that you would love living. Now, this workbook includes audios, meditations, some breath work, and a PEP or paradigm emergency plan for when stress pops up in your life, you're thinking about it in a very particular way, you're about to respond in an old version of you, and you want to shift it. Now, for those of you who would love to take advantage of the PEP, this is a free PDF that I would love to offer you, then please let me know and message me, reach out to me, and I would love to send that to you. And if you're wanting to invest the 35 Canadian dollars in the entire workbook that you get to have for life, then make sure to check out my website because it'll be right there for you guys to download and have with you for whenever you need it. This is going to constantly and consistently help you repattern in any moment that you need to help you continue to become the version of you that you would absolutely love and live the life that you would love living by your design. And we can't do that without changing our mind. So first we must start with the things in our life that we want to reprogram. Some other ways that you can change your mindset or narrative of how you're seeing situations is reframe stress as energy. You can say things like, this is just my body rising to the occasion. You can also name it to tame it. Label what's happening in your body and tag it. You can say things like, I'm currently feeling pressured, but not powerless. This shifts your pattern of thinking from something that feels reactive and unconscious to responsive and consciously co-creative. You can also create an empowered identity to help shift the version of you to be even more resilient to stress. You can say things like, I am not only resilient, but I am resourceful. I can regulate myself even when life feels intense. One thing that I've been really enjoying doing lately to help build this long-term resilience to stress is using a somatic practice, which is naming 5 things that you see in the moment. And this is when you notice that your body's in a state of fight or flight. And instead of thinking in your brain, you're tuning back into your body. And you can use all five senses if you want. What are some things that you're seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or touching? And you can also use that moment to congratulate yourself for noticing what you're noticing and noticing a pattern of stress and giving yourself a big old squeeze to just anchor in, to anchor your body in the moment. The one final practice I have for you to help continue to build resilience to stress is to honor your boundaries and create hygiene practices. Something that, as an empath, that I love doing, that one of my coaches taught me, is to create a cord cutting. You can call it a ceremony. For myself, it feels sometimes ceremonious if I'm giving myself that space. Sometimes I'll find myself surrounded by a lot of people in the grocery store, and I found myself feeling a little bit heavier. Now, something that I do is I'll just visualize the person in front of me, however far distant. Sometimes they're really close, sometimes they're really far, and I'll imagine a cord going from my belly button to theirs in whatever color feels good for me. And I'll just see us connected, and then I will just imagine myself saying, I choose to no longer take on your energy, and vice versa, you no longer will take on my energy. And I say, this isn't me cutting you out of my life. This is me cutting off the energy so that we can both be free. And sometimes I'll imagine myself cutting it with scissors. Sometimes it's a giant sword. Sometimes it's a paring knife. It's whatever's coming up for me and that person in that particular moment. And when I choose in the right moment, it feels very intuitive to cut that cord, then I'll just, let it go. And I will allow my body to physically relax into this moment, and I'll call back all that energy. And I might see it as bright golden light or sparkles coming back into my body, into my heart center. And I'll feel myself feel lighter and lighter and lighter. Now, before I sign off on this podcast today, I would love to leave you with this. Neuroplasticity means that our brain is adaptable and malleable. It means that we can change and rewire our brain to adapt and create new neural networks and new neural connections that serve and support us even better. Right now, you've taught your brain to be very, very good at analyzing and being very attuned to stress. But it doesn't mean it has to be like that forever. So this is great news that just by listening to this podcast, by doing some small practices in your daily life, ranging from 5 minutes up to an hour, doing it once a day, 3 times a day, whatever you are doing that you're consciously using to release the stress and incorporate even more relaxation, your body and your brain is changing. It is changing. It is becoming stronger. It is becoming even more resilient. And just like going to the gym, you may not notice it right away. But over time, you're going to realize that you have unlearned old stress response patterns. You've rewired your reaction to triggers to become more responsive in your decision making and action taking. And you're building new mental and emotional habits that serve and support you in your daily life. Even if you've reacted the same way for years, your history does not determine your destiny. Now remember, your brain is always listening and learning, especially from what you do repeatedly. So if you would love to become even more of the conscious co-creator in your life, for the life that you would absolutely love living, it starts right now. It starts today. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be consistent. 5 minutes of breath work, 5 minutes of just breathing, 5 minutes of yoga, 2 minutes of just relaxing your body in the middle of your workday every single day over years will shift your mind. And so I want to take this time to honor you, to say you're doing a rockin' job, and to really celebrate you for being such a badass and for being the most empowered version of you for your future self, and for being such a fantastic example for all of us who are watching you as you continue to live into your beautiful life. Thank you all so much for tuning in today for episode 4 in the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast. I am so looking forward to doing even more of these with you and look forward to having even more co-stars on the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast. I am so looking forward to all of the people that I have lined up to share their insights, to share their wisdom and their knowledge and their beauty and goodness. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too. Now, until then, I trust, hope, and expect you all are having a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll look forward to talking with you all real soon.
Thank you all for joining me today because it has been my absolute pleasure to be here with you. Make sure to give this podcast a 5-star review and share it with all your loved ones because it helps in creating even more awesome content. If you're interested in learning how to effortlessly create even more health, vitality, and time and money freedom, sign up for my free monthly vision workshop live over Zoom. Until then, I hope you all have a powerful day, and I look forward to chatting with you all real soon.